Galnet News Digest, 8th of November 3308. We read the news so you don't have to. In this week's news, we look back over the 3 months that have elapsed since the Battle of HIP 22460 and look forward to the month ahead and what it may hold. By the 9th of August 3308, there were very few voices speaking out against Salvation's plan to shut down thousands of Stargoid spacecraft using the Proteus Wave weapon that he had assembled in HIP 22460. The Federation, Empire and Alliance were fully supportive of Salvation and his organisation, Azimuth Biotech, and were providing military staff to work under Salvation's chain of command in addition to their own megaships to protect the engineering work to prepare the Proteus Wave in HIP 22460. For weeks the battle had raged, with thousands of pilots supported by the 3 superpowers fighting off the gathering Stargoids. Salvation explained that the Guardian components being used to power the Proteus Wave would attract Stargoids, and it was these swarms of alien vessels that would be shut down by the Proteus Wave pulse. Salvation then planned to gather the stricken vessels and analyse them, potentially to develop more powerful weapons. But in any case, the Stargoids would be dealt such a blow that they would never return to bother humanity. All of humanity's eggs were in one basket. Aegis had been shut down, at least partly due to misinformation spread by Salvation, and despite the revelation of historical cases of unethical research and the use of weapons of mass destruction, the superpowers had little choice but to trust Salvation to rid the galaxy of Stargoids. There were those that opposed Azimuth, mainly on moral grounds, including Professor Albert Tesreau, the former director of research at Aegis, the Alliance as Admiral Rachel Ziegler, and a loose coalition of pilots known as Operation Witch Hunt, who attacked Azimuth resources, driving it out of many systems. But they were in a minority and vastly outnumbered by those busily fighting off the Stargoids in HIP 22460. When the Proteus Wave was fired, it resulted in the near-instant shutdown of all the Stargoids in the system. It had worked perfectly, but the celebrations lasted no more than 2 minutes. A second pulse from the Proteus Wave, which was amplified through a massive Stargoid structure, appears to have been tuned to a different frequency. The Stargoid ships came back to life with increased vigour. Guardian hybrid modules fitted to human ships in the system failed. The intensity of Stargoid patrols and their aggressiveness notched up substantially. Any human ship that drops to normal space in HIP 22460 can expect to be attacked by 1 or more Stargoid ships within 90 seconds. But that's not all. The roar made by the Stargoids in HIP 22460 seems to have attracted the attention of 8 somethings that are now heading towards human space. We're not quite sure what these somethings are, but they're known variously as rogue signal sources, Stargoids, and unidentified interstellar anomalies, and they seem to be massive distortions in space-time. And they're moving inexorably towards us. What is causing the distortions is not clear, but whatever they are, they're massive, and they're almost certainly not good news for humanity, unless we like the planets we live on being blown up, our starports and other infrastructure destroyed, and hostile Stargoids following us around. It's turned into a waiting game for humanity. We can track the Stargoids, but we can't get close enough to them to investigate what they are. The superpowers have been thrown into disarray, with the Empire refusing to consider trying to form a united defence against them, and the Federation and Alliance undecided. There's been talk of re-establishing Aegis, but nothing has come of that yet. There simply doesn't seem to be the political will to make it happen. A substantial peace movement has sprung up, especially in the Federation, which seeks to appease the Stargoid invaders, perhaps by ceding territory to them, but certainly by communicating with them. By contrast, the newly radicalised Far God cult, which is currently operating from a secret location, welcomes the arrival of the Stargoids for a different reason. For them, this is the apocalypse they have been waiting for, and they look forward to the unbelievers being wiped out by their deity, the Far God, and to ascending to a new level of existence as Stargoids serving their lord, the Far God. What will the Stargoids turn out to be? In truth, we don't know. Recent speculation is that they may be energy weapons that can wipe out entire systems, or that they may be giant Stargoid ships, similar to the crashed ships that have been found on many planets in the Pleiades. If they are huge ships, will they be carrying squadrons of interceptors and scouts, or will we see Stargoid ground combat troops for the first time? Will we see different Stargoid ships? We really don't know. An alternative is that they may be the equivalent of navigation beacons, allowing hundreds of Stargoids to all arrive at the same place at the same time. Are they Stargoid? Almost certainly. Some research organisations want to keep an open mind about the Stargoids until they can be sure, but the balance of probability seems very high indeed that the Stargoids are some sort of Stargoid technology. It all sounds pretty grim. What can humanity do other than await their fate at the hands, or similar appendages, of the Stargoids and their new superweapon? There seem to be three possible courses to follow. One option is conventional warfare. The Empire wants to go it alone, and Sirius Corporation is trying to persuade the Alliance to do the same. To line up megaships against the Stargoids, just as we did in HIP 22460, and wait for their inevitable annihilation. But then there are two agencies that promise something better. One of these is Azimuth Biotech, with its proven track record of genocide and human rights abuses. It's trying to expand and to offer new anti-Xeno technologies and support services that may help us to fight off the Stargoids and whatever the Stargoids bring. It appears that it is seeing support from many pilots, possibly at least partly because of the promise of those anti-Xeno weapons, and never mind about all the terrible things that went on in the past. The other agency is Aegis. It's currently completely shut down, and it will require backing from at least two of the superpowers and probably a substantial level of support from pilots. But in its previous incarnation it had a good record of effectiveness and of doing the right thing. It was the withdrawal of funding that killed off Aegis the first time round. But now Professor Tesreau has the cooperation of engineers Ramtar and Ishmael Palin, who have been working on both the Stargoids and the unclassified relics that have been created by feeding Guardian relics into Stargoid structures, in a manner highly reminiscent of what happened to the Proteus Wave. It seems highly likely that a recreated Aegis could develop weaponry using the engineer's analysis that is aware of what the Stargoids did to the Proteus Wave, and that could either harness its power or in some way neutralise the Stargoids' advantage. Tesreau has also been approached by former Azimuth test subject D2, whose name is Xiaojin Ai, and who believes she can understand the Stargoid roar. If this is a first step in understanding and perhaps even communicating with the Stargoids, then perhaps we can make more appropriate military decisions. Or just perhaps we might be able to enter into negotiations with the Stargoids. But until humanity can sort itself out and come up with some sort of united approach to the Stargoids and the Stargoids are likely to have the upper hand. When they arrive, and every indication is they will arrive this month, we should be prepared to lose battles against the Stargoids, and for our stations outposts and settlements to be destroyed. We should be prepared to be driven out of whole systems, just as we were driven out of HIP 22460. We can only hope to organise our military opposition, or our negotiation for peace, before we're driven out of the bubble completely. And that's this week's Galnet News. Galnet News. We read the news so you don't have to.